Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about, man, there's some juicy stuff that just dropped as I was prepping today, but one, Ice Cube is dropping out of a project that he was doing because he won't get vaccinated, so that's interesting. Apparently, there's quite a few projects where producers get to choose whether or not they want to enforce vaccination rules, and they're having some issues. So there's that. There's also this false flag race hoax thing that happened in Virginia that is so funny. That's how I'm going to start off the show once I finish my little intro. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Michigan redistricting panel that has decided to close its doors for a little bit when they had to discuss stuff that was going to affect the voting rights act. So they had a legal memo. They wanted to talk to their lawyers and stuff, but it's in the Michigan Constitution when they decided to pass it that they have to do everything out in the public. Transparency was their big pitch, and obviously they are not meeting the standard that they set. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about President Biden and the Biden administration and how they apparently are going to settle, or trying to settle, they're in talks to settle and give $450,000 per person to illegal immigrants who broke our laws, who came over and who ended up being separated. They want to give that big payout to people. So people are upset. Republicans are like, hey, this is crazy. Even some Republicans that aren't very pro, sort of in the Trumpian thing, they're like, this is gonna make more Trumps, guys. So this is really stupid. Why are we doing this? So we're gonna be discussing that. That's the hot topic of the day. And so there's just a lot of good stuff to get to. So first and foremost, I want to thank the Brighter Michigan PAC for sponsoring in the studio again today. And as always, if I say something that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. Nobody cares. But I do appreciate them allowing me to use the space, but there's no one to complain to get rid of me. I'll still be here speaking the truth. So if you don't like it, you can just scroll along, but I do thank them. If you like what I do here at blacktnews.com, you go to blacktnews.com/donate and give to the site if you would like to. I appreciate everyone who goes the extra mile and decides to do that. If you could at least share around when we go live, make sure that you're sharing the stream, that you're telling other people about the show, that you're subscribed on the YouTube page, that you're also liking the Facebook page, that you guys are hitting the notification bells, because even though you're subscribed and you like to know when we go live, if you don't hit those notification bells, it's like YouTube or whoever doesn't actually want to alert you when there's things going on. So they try to suppress people in what ways they can. So make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure that you go to the website, blacktnews.com, and that you have signed up for your email so you can get different emails when stuff pops up. Bookmark the website as well. And please consider checking the different merchandise that we have at the store, like a goat hoodie is popular. We got the Trump shirts and stuff, and man, don't we miss them? We got some crazy stuff going on. I'm not the victim you're looking for. And we got all kinds of other stuff as well. So make sure to go to the website and maybe you'll find something that you'll like. Order it as early as possible, especially if you want some stuff for Christmas time. Go ahead and order now, because with Biden, we do have some supply chain issues. I'm not saying I've suffered supply chain issues with product or whatever right now, but hey, you just better safer than sorry. So let's jump into the news of the day. You guys know I like to start with something humorous, and there is a funny haha from Senator Tom Cotton, who well, I guess I first have to explain the story before I show his tweet. So there was a picture going around, because it's Youngkin is the Republican candidate running for governor in Virginia. And so people are very concerned because the race is close, and in polls, they actually show him pulling ahead. So there's some suspicious people who decided to wear, to sort of look Republican-ish. I guess that's what they figured Republican-ish look like. And they got some tiki torches, which is obviously supposed to be some kind of white supremacist play to Charlottesville. So anyway, you have people on the left and with Terry McAuliffe who's like sharing this stuff, and other people in that circle, and it's just like the Democrats sort of eating this up. So people decided to do some investigations, and of course it's fake. Those are Democrat operatives. And some of them are still being identified, but a few of them have been identified, and they work with the Virginia Democrats. And gosh, if just a little piece of advice, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if your field operative person advises you to dress up like a white supremacist, just say no. Just say no. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. So anyway, Cotton said Terry McAuliffe is so desperate that his staffers are dressing up like Ralph Northam. It won't work. For those of you who don't know, Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, dressed up as, I don't know, he never admitted to which one. We just know that he was either in the blackface, or he was the white supremacist, or he was the KKK member in the hood. So, man, I can't see a professional advising these people to do this. I just wouldn't. I just can't see that happening. So I wonder. I wonder. Oh my gosh, was this a boneheaded idea of like Terry's team? Because they're just so desperate. So, like I said, they are identifying these people already. And it's just a really bad look. I don't understand why they don't think people can find this out as quickly as possible. And these people have already started protecting their pages. But they look like darn fools for doing this. And I just can't understand why you would do anything like this. Oh my gosh. So one of these guys, I think was a finance director of Young Democrats in Virginia. So obviously this is a boneheaded thing. The young woman has been identified as Colleen Wachenfeld. She's associated with the Virginia Democrats. So again, my gosh, if someone tells you to dress up like a white supremacist, don't do it. And obviously when people first started seeing this, they got suspicious and started investigating, because a lot of these hate hoaxes that we hear about, or hate crimes we hear about, end up being hoaxes. It's people taking things far out of proportion, or it's like the rope at the NASCAR. They would have been mad at me, because when that happened, you had all the drivers walking with what's his name, Bubba or something, in like solidarity, and they had like the FBI come and like investigating and stuff. I wouldn't have walked with them. I would have been like, I'm not doing this unless maybe people would have tried to peer pressure me, but I'm like, I'm not walking with everybody until we know that this was a legit thing, because this seems stupid. So I would have been the only one sitting out. I probably would have got, if I was like a NASCAR driver, I probably would have got, not probably, I would have been super demonized. And then after it was proven that I was right, I'd have been like, but people still would probably be mad because I didn't stand in solidarity. And the crazy thing about that story, going back in time, is that people are like, oh, this is just how those people who watch NASCAR are. Like it's some kind of evil indictment on the people, but everyone coalesced and rallied behind that driver to say racism is bad, and it was a hoax. But we could mention Jussie Smollett. This is the party of Jussie Smollett, buddies with Kamala Harris. Jussie Smollett, who it did a claim that he was attacked in Chicago at night in a polar vortex while he was on his way to Subway. Turned out he didn't even hire white guys to do it. It was just some big old hulkling Negroes in some Trump hats. And he claimed he was. First of all, I knew it was a lie when he said he was attacked by Trump supporters. I'm just like, who did he find in Chicago? The whole thing just sounded stupid for a lot of reasons. I mean, the polar vortex, it just was really silly. But that's and I think they said at first like this is Trump country. It's like that. No, it is not. No, is it? No, it is not. So the whole story was crazy. And there's other hate hoaxes that famous people don't commit, but people writing the N-word on churches and on their garages and cars and in school property and stuff. And it turns out that some black student did it and such and such. Did you guys notice that there's a black guy there? The Democrats were like, oh, we got. That's what's also funny about this too. That they also were like, we got to be inclusive with our racism. So they made sure to rope in a poor black guy. This is so embarrassing. I don't want to I guess it's not really doxing or anything, but oh my gosh, who is this black man? Who is this black man who would do this? Pretend to be a white supremacist just to take out this dude here, to take out Youngkin, who would embarrass himself in such a way and participate in this hoax. So they got a woman, made sure to have a woman, and they made sure to have a black guy, and they have 3 white guys, and it's all fake. That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't even like doing when we had to participate or get people together to do a demonstration or whatever, and they'd be calling around people, and I didn't even like doing it anyway. So I can't even imagine trying to get some people together and be like, yeah, you're gonna dress up as a white supremacist to make these people look racist. So they're so desperate and have nothing. And I keep talking about the Virginia race, and I keep saying all they had to do was listen to the parents, the concerned people, and say, hey, we're going to listen to your concerns, and we're going to make sure that we're going to put your fears to rest. That's all they had to say. They didn't have to gaslight these people and say, there's no culture wars. It's stupid. That's just Republican propaganda. When a man's daughter was sexually assaulted, and it actually ended up, and he assaulted again that kid. When people are finding the most perverse things in their libraries, when their kids are being told that they're racist or that they can't succeed, when people find this stuff and you're gaslighting them, all you had to do was listen to your constituents, the people that you want to represent. If you're failing, that's your fault. And it's crazy because this should be a runaway race. And again, Terry might actually still win this thing because Virginia is a blue state. But the fact that these Virginia Democrats had to resort to getting operatives and dressing them up, pretending to be white supremacists, carrying the tiki torches to invoke Charlottesville and pretend to be Youngkin people. That the fact that they had to resort to this is so pathetic. It's hilarious, but it's pathetic, and it's a shame that because they're grown enough to know better, these people who participate in it. But it's a shame that Virginia Democrats got these people together and they did this, whoever's idea it was. This is just bonkers. It's just absolutely bonkers, and super shame on this black guy on the end. It's just unbelievable to pretend to be a white supremacist to try to take out a Republican candidate. It's it's just so crazy. It's so bizarre. So I'm a little in love with this story today. I'm a little in love with the story today. They're still identifying the people in the story, but it's pretty hilarious. Now let's talk about something that probably made you laugh a little bit. Let's talk about something that's probably gonna make your blood boil a little bit. So the Biden administration is thinking about paying off illegal immigrants who were separated at the border. Tucker Carlson did it. Well, the Washington Post, I think, was the first newspaper to really report on it. And so Tucker Carlson talked about it last night. People have been talking about it on TikTok all over and stuff. People are obviously upset with this. So let's at least watch a little bit of the segment from Tucker.
So no matter what happens going forward, and God knows what that'll be, this story will live forever as the high watermark of political lunacy. Mark your calendars. It's October 28th, 2021. This is the day that things couldn't possibly get nuttier. And here it is. According to a piece in this afternoon's Wall Street Journal, the Biden administration has decided to pay reparations to illegal aliens. In other words, foreigners who came here without invitation, who came in willful violation of legal statutes passed by our Congress per our Constitution, those people are about to get a groveling apology and huge amounts of cash. Why? Because our government dared to enforce its own laws, which now apparently is immoral. So the Biden White House is going to pay criminals for committing crimes. It's almost impossible to believe that's real, but it is real. According to the Journal, the administration plans to, quote, offer immigrant families that were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation. The U.S. Departments of Justice, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services are considering payments that could amount to close to $1 million per family. $1 million per family for illegal aliens at exactly the moment that American families are becoming noticeably poorer by the day. You won't be surprised to learn, according to the paper, that nearly 1,000 reparations claims have already been filed. Why not? The total payout from all this? More than $1 billion. So how much is that exactly? Well, let's see. If you're an American citizen who is killed in a war defending your country, our government promises to send your family $100,000. That is less than a quarter of what Joe Biden intends to give illegal aliens for the inconvenience of being deported. They're once again getting $450,000 a piece from your tax receipts. That's more than some of the 9/11 victims got. It's more than any ordinary American ever gets for anything from the U.S. government. Most people in this country just give. Foreigners with no respect for our laws or systems, meanwhile, are hitting the jackpot.
Yeah. So when Tucker started and he's like, this is the most looniest thing, I'm like, what's he about to say? And I'm like, oh dang, that is pretty loony. So former Vice President Pence talked about it this morning as well.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good to be with you from Indiana.
It's so good to have you on. We woke up this morning and our top story was what's happening down there on the border, because we're being told President Biden is planning on giving illegal immigrants who were separated from their parents, giving them each $450,000. So it could be nearly $1 million per family. What's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is totally unacceptable. Of course, their whole policy at the southern border has been a disaster from day one. It's remarkable to think that under our administration, we built 400 miles of border wall, and literally by implementing what was known as the Remain in Mexico policy, we reduced illegal immigration by 90%. President Biden rescinded that policy on day one. It's being litigated in courts right now, but the reality is that they've unleashed the worst border crisis in more than 30 years, and it's all been because of dismantling policies that were working, but also sending a message south of the border that America's borders are open to people coming north and entering our country illegally or abusing our asylum system. And this is just one more message that is going to continue to be a magnet on people that are coming north of the border. What we've got to do is get back to what was working, re-implement the Remain in Mexico policy, require people to wait in Mexico when they apply for asylum, and let's not be paying millions of dollars a week to pay people not to build the wall. Let's get back to building the wall. That border security worked.
But Mr. Vice
it's
President,
just one more example of a disastrous policies that violate the common sense of the American people.
Yeah, so he's right. So the more that they incentivize and award bad behavior, you'll just have more people who will come to the border. And they've had to go back and do some more of Trump's policies, even though Trump, like, if you watch a press conference with Jen Psaki, especially like earlier, it seemed like if Trump was brought up, she's treated him like Voldemort. Like, you could not say his name. Actually, they just the former administration, and like I don't know, it seemed like they didn't even want to mention him. Like, he's that toxic to them. But it's clear that they don't know what they're doing, and it's one thing that you have people that they're implementing policies that you don't like, but how they've handled the border situation, it's obvious that they don't know what they're doing. And I've talked about how there were certain moments, like when Jen Psaki, they were asked, like, what are you guys doing to stop people from coming? And she was like, oh, I'm so glad. And she started explaining all the like sort of ads and stuff they were putting out in other countries in Spanish or wherever, so people wouldn't come, and they were making cartoons. And she's just so proud to read this to the press. And I'm like, dear God. And it's the first time I'm like getting actually like kind of grieved, like very concerned. And I'm like, she thinks that she's doing something. She thinks she's making a good point, and by making cartoons, like we're gonna fix the border crisis with cartoons, right? And so then a reporter acts like, Jen, do you have any evidence that this is working? And then she just smiles and kind of laughs. She's like, well, we'll never know who decides not to come. So you've already pre-planned to just lose money and not have a way for it to be accountable to say, hey, we know that this stopped people from coming. Like, what's the point of spending money that you can't track success? You've already acknowledged that you don't plan to track your success or your failures. If these people had to survive in like a normal corporate world, like with their own business, they would not act this stupid with their own stuff. Like, where you incentivize bad behaviors, when you incentivize people to break the rules, to waste your money, to not have any sort of accountability. That's what frustrates people about the government. Like, you can't do all these crazy things anywhere but in government. So they're talking about doing these payouts as they get, as they go in court with these people who were here illegally, and they're trying to rationalize it, saying, hey, well, we don't want to have to litigate and all this time, and even have to shine a light on all this terrible thing that happened under Trump. Like, well, they came here illegally. People came with coyotes. Just FYI, because I'm aware that there was a lot of Democrats who watched the debate who had no idea what coyotes were, and they actually thought that Trump meant, when he mentioned coyotes, that the animals were bringing children across the border, and they viciously mocked the president for saying something absolutely true and normal. It's fine if you're not informed, but just why be snarky and wrong? Why be so snarky and ignorant? And I'm not just talking about just like normal people. Like, I've shared this with you like live before, and I definitely have shared on Facebook. I've shared it recently because a memory popped up of all the people that someone did a collage of people like coyotes. And there's a lot of verified check marks in there, including like a state legislator somewhere down south. It was like, coyotes. So I keep saying this. It's one thing to care about a situation, but you can't be so emotionally invested that you get distracted and you don't actually look at the information. Because if you're just emotional and you're not informed about the facts, people are just going to take advantage of you. So we know people came over with people who they weren't even related to. So it was necessary to separate them for some time because you don't know if someone came with a non-family member, if they're a coyote, if they had people sexually assaulted and trafficked in all sorts of ways. Which when back in the days of the Obama Biden administration, they had them in and they had them out somewhere very fast. I think they had like a 24-48 hour rule, but some of these people went off to places where these people were like sort of enslaved slash trafficked. The Washington Post reported that some time ago too. So the ways that Biden and Obama ran the border, but especially right now with Biden, there's just a lot of incompetence right there. It's not humane, and they're just making the crisis far worse. But if they're paying out people $450,000 who are separated, that's gonna be awful, and it's just gonna keep people coming on and flowing on. But isn't it crazy? Like as Tucker mentioned, there's if you die for America, you will not get as much as what they are talking about. If you have a vaccine injury, it depends what I guess what you settle for in court or whatever. But $450,000 is not like the fee that they start off with. No way. So it's very puzzling. It's very puzzling. And here you are not getting your last bit of stimulus check that Biden claimed because he said that that Trump did a down payment and then they did the rest. But that wasn't true because Trump wasn't a whole entire different president making different promises. And remember when he was like, vote for me, you're going to get this extra money immediately. Remember that? And then they only gave you some of it. Remember that? Which I didn't understand because I'm like, you're spending so much money anyway, and you can't just like give them the money that you said you would. I didn't understand the point of like making that, not keeping that political promise. I didn't. I wasn't going to talk about this today, but someone left a funny comment. Facebook is actually going to be changing their name to Meta, and someone said Meta is make everything Trump again. Oh, it's funny. Mind if I make that in a shirt, guys? Oh my gosh. So that's pretty interesting too. Facebook deciding to change that name, but I haven't looked a ton into that story. To me, it's just kind of like right now to totally rebrand that because they're still going to come after them anyway. So I don't understand. I don't know. It just seems kind of a waste, but we'll see what they're doing with Facebook. But yeah, that is a crazy story right now with that is a real crazy story right now with the Biden administration and the border. And if they keep incentivizing people to keep coming and they're going to get some kind of payouts, it's crazy. There's some people who are libertarians who believe in like sort of no border sort of rules, I guess, but the but you can't have that sort of system right now where you have too many like sort of government incentives and welfare states and so on. It's it breeds too much. It's not a natural process of people just kind of coming back and forth. People are coming to get those sort of incentives and payouts, and they're going to pay people $450,000 who broke our laws illegally. They should get nada, nothing but a ticket back to wherever they came from, in my opinion. In my opinion. So let's move on. I do want to talk about Ice Cube a little bit. So Ice Cube was working on a movie, and the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that he is now dropping from the film. It's called Oh Heck No. It's not Oh Heck No, but you can use your imagination. And it's really interesting. They wanted him to be vaccinated, and he decided that he wasn't going to be vaccinated. So right now, there's a lot of people speaking pretty mum on it. His rep team, Sony's rep team, aren't really saying much about it, but that appears to be the story right now. So I think that's cool beans right now that there's still people willing to, decide to. Well, I got both my double screen showing. I'm sorry. So I think it's right now it's good to hear stories with people who are willing to stand up and not concede. Like we see that with a couple of basketball players right now. We talked about Kyrie and how he decided he didn't want to be vaccinated, and how Stephen A. Smith and people were talking about him for not being vaccinated because he can't play like in over 50% of the games. But it's crazy because they'll have other players who aren't on his team, but they're coming to compete, and they can still play in their home area or whatever, but he can't play. So I don't understand why they're not enforcing it, other than the fact that they just want you to comply, and they don't care about consistency. They don't care about what makes sense. They just want you to bend the knee. They just want you to bend the knee. So in the case of Ice Cube, uh, he is supposed to do this movie with Jack Black, and they want him to get vaccinated, and right now he's deciding, I guess, not to. And by the way, he's losing out on $9 million. So that's what he was going to get in the project, and he apparently decided to walk away from it. So that's no small feat, but I mean, obviously he does have money and he has the capability to do his own thing. But there's some people who would jump for $1. And he's apparently not moving. Now, I wonder if it seems like he does have a healthy bit of distrust. And if you recall, people were mad at Ice Cube because he met with some people or talked to some people from the Trump team, and he talked from some people from the Biden team to kind of get his thoughts about the Black community, how to help them, etc. So Democrats were mad that he even bothered to talk to the right and work on their platinum plan and so on. So it was crazy to see that they attacked him so much for just talking, the crime of talking, for thinking that, hey, maybe we can just do something different and see what one side has to offer. Why not just take the best deal that you can and go from there? And he got talked about, trashed about. And of course, Biden ended up winning. He's the president. But Ice Cube is an individual who's going to do what he wants to do. He's not someone who can be easily bullied. He stayed by his conviction when all these people were talking about him. Then he didn't come out and apologize and say, "I'm sorry for talking to the right." He didn't get bullied into saying, "Oh, these people were white supremacists. I should have known better." He didn't do anything like that. He stuck to his guns. So I wonder if he actually is concerned about the virus. I mean, about the vaccine. Because he does seem to have like a healthy distrust of government, which we all should have. But I wonder if this is just you're not going to tell me what to do, so I'm going to stand my ground because somebody needs to. Because somebody needs to. And you guys know we talked about Nicki Minaj for like a solid week, right? And people were mad at her. And she didn't say she wasn't going to take the vaccine. As a matter of fact, she said she probably would take the vaccine because she wants to go on tour. But people were mad that she was saying, pray about it, get information. And the White House she says the White House invited her. The White House said they didn't invite her. I think Nikki's probably right because they've invited her before, in the past. At least when, I think when Obama was president, she's been in the White House. So it's not so crazy. They literally do interviews with celebrities on the campaign trail. They did. And there was a guy who was in a sexual assault scandal that did an interview with Biden. So they probably need to not do that next time, because you never know who might be on the other line and what dirty things are in their closet. So I believe that she probably was invited by the White House, and then they're like, well, no, we offered a call. Okay. The point is that they probably did that because they want to bring her around. And on the Breakfast Club, Charlemagne, he was asked to kind of get on the everybody take the vaccine kind of train, like everybody come together and sort of push it. And he wasn't for it because he thought it was weird how there can be other sort of things going in the Black community and all the politicians, whoever, won't get together to coalesce around that. But with the vaccine, you want to call everybody to do that. So he was uncomfortable with it. Now I don't watch the Breakfast Club really. I don't really follow it, so I don't know how much he's pushed it or whatever, and so on. But I do know that he said it kind of wigged him out. And Nicki Minaj was kind of wigged out by the backlash from Joy Reid and other people. And Ice Cube is more plugged in than the average bear. And if I had to guess, I think he's a little wigged out about some stuff too. So, but if anything, it could just be you're not going to tell me what to do. So apparently, a lot of producers can get to decide whether or not the talent and staff or whoever are going to be vaccinated. And in this case, that was a decision the producer made on a picture with him and Jack Black. And Ice Cube said nope. And they were filming it in Hawaii. And Hawaii does have some really big restrictions, which I know is kind of like not kind of like a leftist sort of place, but it's such a beautiful tropical place. You would just think that would just kind of be, I don't know, a place where you could just chill a little bit more about those things. But no, they're pretty extreme with their lockdown measures too. So I don't plan on vacationing there anytime soon. But kudos to Ice Cube for sticking with it. And I wonder, well, I've seen a few, I guess, of things with him in it and that have been funny. I've seen a few things with Jack Black before. So I don't know if this would have been something that I would have sat down and watched eventually. But he walked away from $9 million. And I commend him for sticking to his guns, I guess, about it. And we'll see who else picks up the slack. But we do need other people to stand up. So I'm curious if he'll have any comment about it. This is something that is just sort of developing right now. So we shall see. We shall see. So the last thing I want to talk about today, as far as like the main major story, and I might have time to mention something else because I thought about the Wonder Woman trans thing again. But we'll see how long. If I have time, I'll squeeze it in here. So in Michigan, we have a redistricting panel. And well, in 2018, there was a big ballot initiative, and there's a group called Voters Not Politicians. Now, they said it was like bipartisan. It was like an Obama sort of Eric Holder pet project where they want to set up ways around the country to make it so Democrats win. It's not about fairness. They want to find a way to win. So anyway, the group led a very, very simplistic sort of race. I mean, well, ballot initiative, they're like, hey, politicians shouldn't decide who gets to pick the lines. The people should do it. Voters, not politicians. So it got on the ballot. And I think they kept their messaging very simple. I think redistricting is very kind of complex for people to understand everything that's sort of going on, which is one reason why the panel shouldn't do it. But here we are. So I don't think that it probably should have gotten on the ballot. It should have probably gotten tossed out in court, in my opinion, because it's really discriminatory. So their pitch was they're going to pick just average citizens. They said we're going to pick 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents. Now, the problem with independents are you sure that you're not leaning a particular way? Which the Republican Party, at least to my knowledge, did some research on some of these independents, and some of them definitely have given to Democrats. Now, I guess that doesn't technically make you a Democrat, but people lean a certain way, right? So just having 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 5 independents doesn't mean that, Republicans are suddenly outnumbered and that the independents are all going to be fair. So it was discriminatory because you were supposed to just like randomly, and there was like a lottery that picked these people who are interested in doing it. But if you were involved in any sort of politics before, you could not be selected in the pool. And and I don't just mean like if you were a congressperson or a senator or state senator or something like that, even if you're a precinct delegate. And that's like precinct delegate is a very important job, don't get me wrong, but that's sort of like the bottom rung thing that you can run for like political politics. I mean, you can win a race somewhere if you get like two in some places, if you get two people to vote for you for precinct delegate. um so if you're precinct delegate, your spouse can't be on the panel either, your children. So it expands in family members too, so it's pretty discriminatory. So they want people who are completely non-political to, but who are party affiliated, except for the independents, I guess. But independents are some of them are Democrat donors. So they wanted them to be on the panel in the board to redraw our lines for Congress, redraw our lines for like state seats and House seats. It's a very sort of complicated process. There's a bunch of rules that you have to meet and standards you have to meet. So they are running into trouble because it is a very complicated process, and usually our state legislators do it, and we do vote for those people. So it's not like those people were not represented when our state legislators do it. But they wanted this panel to do it, and the panel sort of overseen by the Secretary of State office. As a matter of fact, if they can't end up, if the group doesn't vote on the maps, if they can't come to some sort of agreement, it's the Secretary of State that it's going to fall to. So, and people were concerned also, like we can oversee and have some kind of accountability for the people when we elect to do these things. This panel, this commission, they're not beholden to us. So there are a lot of like meetings where they'll have with people to interject their comments, and they take them into some consideration when they're drawing up the maps. And there are certain things they're supposed to keep in mind when they make them. And so they kept saying they wanted to keep communities of interest together. But that seems to have taken a back burner because, and they want to make sure that they are politically advantaged, the Democrats. Anyway, so some of the maps are pretty bad. Pretty bad. So right now there's a really big issue because we have areas in like Metro Detroit, well, Detroit area, where you have large areas of Democrat voters. Wayne County, everyone knows, like election night, you could be a pretty red map, and then Wayne County drops and it'll change the whole election, right? When those votes come in, it's a huge Democrat district. And so there's a lot of because of the Voting Civil Rights Act, you're supposed to have certain districts of minority voters that have a majority, so they have representation, especially like in our state house, in our state senate and stuff. So what they've been doing with the maps is that they've been sort of taking those areas of Detroit and just sort of stretching them into other areas so they can have more Democrats voting in these areas. But what they're doing is also diluting the amount of Black representation if they do that. Because if they're going in other neighborhoods, you might have more. The Democrat voters might overcome some of the areas, maybe like in Oakland County or Macomb, wherever you're stretching it over to. But when you go by like the state house or the house or the state seats, you're going to have less Black people in those areas, and so you'll have maybe less Black or minority populations in your local house and senate and stuff. It's kind of complicated, but we've had Democrats actually protest because there will be less minority representation because of this. And so they had a meeting, and there was some kind of legal memo about them violating the Voting Right Act. And they closed the doors. So in the Constitution, because they changed our state constitution when they decided to pass this voters, not politicians thing, in 2018. And by the way, we had marijuana on the ballot. So Democrats just sort of swept that thing. That's when we got our Governor Whitmer, Nessel, and Jocelyn Benson. And people didn't expect Nessel to win, but she took it. They swept. They really swept. But we had huge amount of people who came out. But to be fair with the voters, not politicians, you had a lot of Republicans obviously voted for that. But when they heard, people kept saying we were trying to break up gerrymandering. So Republicans heard they're going to stop gerrymandering. So that means when we live in District 13, 14, where there's a majority of Democrats, we're going to have a shot. No, that's not what that meant. They definitely meant that they want more districts to be like 13, 14. So that was a fault on like Republican leadership for not properly explaining what was happening. And I'm doing my best trying to do a deep kind of, I guess a brief run through of all this. I'll get someone on the show to kind of explain it in more depth. But one of the promises of this commission was supposed to be transparency. And they decided to close the doors to discuss the memos about the Voters Act. So you had the Michigan Republican Party saying, obviously this isn't good, but you also had the Democrats that were like, this is concerning. This is concerning. So I wonder sort of how the allegiance is sort of going to end up. Are they going to be more committed to making sure that they have minority representation, or being more committed to just trying to take it and win? Now, how they're doing the maps right now, if someone takes it to court and it goes to the Supreme Court, the maps are probably going to get shut down because it's definitely a violation of the Voting Rights Act right now. Definitely a violation. And right now, them discussing that behind closed doors, all of their hearings and stuff is supposed to be done in public. They asked the reporters and stuff to leave so they could talk about it. And they're like, hey, we have a right to talk to our lawyers. It's like, but you guys are the one who changed the state constitution. By the way, if we want to undo this panel, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. And I don't think it's been a good thing. And there's people who clearly it's taken a long time to sort of get their legs off the ground with like making these maps and stuff, because it's a complicated process. It's complicated to explain. That's why there hasn't been a ton of news stories about it. It's not quite the sexy story of Ice Cube and so on, but it's still important for activists to know about. And I don't know how much people can really do about it besides going to like the public comments and saying, hey, I don't want you to just break up my neighborhood in all sorts of different ways just so you can bring in all these Democrat voters. Like, you guys are obviously trying to get a political advantage and break up our communities of interest, which is also pretty vague in their explanations as well. So they did ask Dana Nessel, our Attorney General, to do something about it. They've already had their closed door meeting, so I don't know what's gonna happen now. But they are going into like people needing to issue public comments. So if you're an activist, you should talk to your local Republican chair, whoever, and find out where these meetings are, sort of what the things you should say to let them know, hey, please don't break up my neighborhood, my community, and try to keep things as together as possible. And they have to listen to public comment. If they end up changing the maps, it'll reset again with like another 45 days of like public comment. But I don't know what's going to happen when they completely run out of time. But if they cannot come to some kind of agreement with the maps that they pick, with their vote, it will fall to the Secretary of State. And the maps that they have right now, some of them are really bad, and some of them they didn't even have on their website. Like I was at a meeting a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago, and they didn't have all their maps on their site. So they're not meeting the standards of transparency that they were supposed to. So it's something to be concerned about, especially if you live in the state of Michigan. So I did post this article on my Facebook page. So please read that from the Detroit News. There's been some updates, other people still writing about it, but you're going to see some more stories about it as we get kind of closer to the time. But we may very well have Democrats suing this panel, this commission, over some of their maps, especially if they're going to lose a lot of their voters in the district because they're spilled out in other places, or just because you'll see less representation of minorities in the state house, in the state senate. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, a little complicated, but it's definitely interesting and definitely something that was really important. I really wish we weren't in this position, but that's what happens when there aren't sort of clear messages going out during election time. I know we were really concerned about beating the governor and so on, and there was like all this momentum for like John James and stuff. But people should have been making phone calls but saying, don't vote yes on this proposal. Like, we do not need to pass voters, not politicians, and just sort of explain it. Like I said, Republicans voted for this thing. Republicans voted for this thing, but a lot of people just didn't understand what it was. So we really dropped the ball on that. Really dropped the ball on it. And there was other things that they changed as well. So best we can do is try to pick up the pieces now. Best thing we can do. So I got a little bit of time. So I want to go back to this. I'm sorry, my nose is like a little stuffy right now. So you know that DC Comics decided to make Wonder Woman, not Wonder Woman, they have an Amazon who is trans. Right? So this is in their Nubia book. And they're making Nubia the Queen of the Amazons now. And so there's a water spring or something where women who have been violently killed in man's world comes back, and they get reborn in like immortal Amazon bodies. So in this second panel here, you see this Black woman saying, I don't know how to explain it yet, but this exact moment feels like my soul has desired it long before I came here. So they didn't pre-announce this. Usually when they have something big political happen, they pre-announce it, but they sort of waited till this came out and people had a reaction to it, and they confirmed what was happening, that this is not a bisexual, a trans woman who is now an Amazon. And like, oh, Wonder Woman found a way to do it so tasteful to have this trans person in there. So the funny thing about this now, as I think about it, because I talked about, just how comic books keep changing things, and they keep trying to get all super political with this stuff. But the funny thing about this, though, is that she can't possibly be trans. Follow with me, guys. So if this Waters of Lost Souls, or whatever it's called, if it comes from women who were killed violently in man's world, and then they're reborn in their bodies. So, and then the writers, they did let it be known, like, if you make the connection of trans people who are killed in violence, as Biden called an epidemic once, which isn't true, by the way. There isn't some kind of concerted effort to kill trans people. There isn't some big hate crime against them. Most of the time when you see trans people who are killed, it is in domestic situations. It's not like some kind of targeted hate crime. So anyway, so there's another just bit of false like propaganda that they're trying to push through the comic books. But anyway, if this was a man who identified as a woman, they had gender dysphoria, then this is still a man who believed they're a woman and they died, and then their soul ended up mixed in with the women's souls and they got reborn. But I'm assuming DC's point is probably that this person was always a woman, and they had the soul of a woman in their body, and then they were killed, and then they died violently because of, I don't know, trans hate, if that's the connection that they wanted people to make. And they were reborn in a woman's body. So if you're trans, the way you identify yourself is different than your biological body. So if they are reborn and they have a real woman's soul, how they are believe they're supposed to be, which these people don't have memories of their past lives, by the way. But this person is reborn. This person was always meant to be a woman, right? They're reborn in a woman's body. This person isn't trans. It's just a woman. It's just a woman. This isn't a trans person then. If they're reborn as a woman in a woman's biological body, if that's a woman's biological body, a woman's biological Amazon body, now that's a woman. Isn't that our contention? You can't fight biology. As Ben Shapiro would say, you can't magically change your age. You can't magically change your gender. Well, you can't do that in the real world, but apparently in comic book world, magic can help you get there. But the person is still magically now transformed into a woman. So they're hailing this person as a trans person. I'm like, oh, DC did the trans woman thing. Oh, it's so tasteful. She's not trans. She's a woman. And there's lots of lore where people have reincarnations and so on, and you might go through past lives or different lives as a man or a woman or whatever. It wasn't like Cloud Atlas or whatever. I didn't see it, but for an example, and I don't know all the lore behind that. I just know that's an example. And they actually had the actors like being different races in the film or something like that. So, but anyway, there's stories where people are reincarnated into different sort of. They might be a different gender. They might be a different race and whatever. But you're reborn. They're reborn into a woman. So DC Comics, thinking they're so smart and so clever, trying to be so inclusive, they remade her to she's just a woman. So I'm happy to burst some people's bubbles here. I'm happy to burst some people's bubbles here on this. Also, I had a friend of mine who was pushing back against people who were saying who had an issue with this, because she's like, you guys always say that you want them to make original characters, and they finally made an original character and you still have a problem with it. And she's like, are you guys just bigots? So my contention with that is that you're kind of conflating a bunch of different issues together. Because one, people say make your own character. Like if I'm like, guys, you don't have to keep changing all these red heads and make them black characters. You can just go make a new black character. You don't have to do that to pander to me. Just I want interesting new characters. That's different when we say like make your own character. And then there's people upset about people injecting too much politics into things. Which there is a pattern with DC Comics and Marvel Comics. It seems like a lot of these writers actually resent people like me who've been reading for a long time and expect our characters to be a certain way and aren't really open to the change because we want them to be pretty consistent with how they've been for, I don't know, like for example, with Tim Drake Robin, just have a consistency that he's had since he's existed for like 30 years. You don't have to change him and say he has to figure out his sexuality now, for example. And if you want a gay Superman, okay, that's okay. Maybe that's not so crazy, but he's really dating a pink-haired hacktivist and fighting for refugees and climate change. That's a little on the nose, don't you think? It's a little on the nose. So people they're annoyed when you keep injecting the politics and it's so obvious. And so now you get to a point where you're doing the trans thing in a Wonder Woman book with the Amazons, when Amazons are supposed to be like so fiercely pro-woman, anti-men, and you got a man who believed he was a woman creeping in, invading the safe space of the women souls to get reborn into a woman. And I didn't even think about the fact that it's not really technically trans until like I started really reflecting on it. So I thought they kind of conflated things a bit, but I do think it's hilarious because it's not technically trans, because they're in the right body right now, right? So magic has prevailed in this case. And I just thought I should let you guys all know and share that. You can share that information and watch someone see they did this to trigger you, people like you, and now you have the tools, information to trigger right back. That's why you watch things like this, right? That's why you watch Black Teen News. So anyway, if you appreciated the show, if you like the show today, please make sure you go to blackteennews.com/donate and you consider leaving a donation to Black Teen News. Also check out the different merchandise that we have at the shop. Like we have this My Money, My Business shirts. I'm so annoyed when people talk about abortion and they want to make, but at the same time, they want people to pay for it. They want to get rid of the Hyde Amendment and so on. So I'm just like, you know what? My money, my business is, and of course, this goes on beyond. We talked about today how Biden administration wants to do a payout of $450,000 to illegal immigrants. So it's your money, your business. So you can pick that up at blackteennews.com. I do also have like some seasonal sort of things with the pumpkin spice season with the little chibi Trump. And I do have those also in shirts as well. So check out different merchandise that I have on the website. Find something that you guys will love, like the You Are Not That Special shirts. They got the cute little mugs as well and Black Teen News stuff. So go check out the website and check out merchandise, get something for yourself and your friends and your family and so on. And please make sure that you're sharing different articles that I've written. I did write a pretty in-depth article about Merrick Garland, the White House, the National School Board Association. Man, they were really hammering him. Ted Cruz hammered Garland the other day. Oh my gosh. He hammered him so hard on the whole issues of the school board and going after the parents and stuff. But it's got a lot of good links in there to where you can see the original letter that they wrote, the memo that the Justice Department wrote, and I got links to the emails that of the school board saying to the two. It wasn't sent by the whole school board. It was sent by two people, and they ended up apologizing for it. So please go check out that article on blackteennews.com and please share it around. It's a really good article, and I don't just say that because I wrote it, but it has some good resources in it that I think are really important for parents to know. And this sort of madness going on is one reason why the Virginia race it seems to be tipping in the Republicans' favor. I'm not going to hold my breath and get all super excited about Youngkin pulling it out, but I hope he does. I really hope he does. Thank you. Someone said that they enjoyed the show today. Thanks for spreading the truth, and safe Halloween. Thank you guys so much. I guess Halloween is Sunday, right? Don't have too much candy, guys, and make sure that you're checking your kids' candy for COVID vaccines. You don't want them to get pricked with a needle. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.